it, Jennifer. Your big breaking TV. Welcome to prime time, bitch.
Damn, could Freddy drop a one-liner on you? He was famous for them. He had tons of them. And I really think that's one of the things that separated Freddy Krueger from the rest of the pack. I mean, don't get me wrong, Michael Myers may be my favorite horror icon spree killer of all time, but he never says anything. Same with Jason Voorhees and Leatherface. The only thing that comes close really is Pinhead from Hellraiser. He definitely has some good lines. But the difference between all of those and Freddy is there's some dark comedy into what he did on screen.
Nice hearing from you, Carlos.
And I really think because of that on-screen presence, that personality, that dark humor, mixed with the perfect storm of it being the mid to late 80s, early 90s, that you were able to get away with marketing the way that they did and bringing the kind of merch they did available. Here we are today, 40 years removed from the release of the original film in 1984. And the last Nightmare on Elm Street film came out in 2010. It's been 14 years. So it's not like there's been a new release of a movie to keep the brand so strong. That just goes to show you how iconic Freddy Krueger is. In the mid to late 90s, Freddy didn't shy away from having merch that was marketed towards kids. I mean, it's not like he chose to do it himself, but hey, the brand reaped the benefits of it. And in today's video, we're gonna take a look at some of the merch I have that has been released over the years, catering towards Freddy Krueger and A Nightmare on Elm Street. The Topps Freddy Krueger bubblegum dispenser from 1989. Okay, so these bubblegum dispensers by Topps are just wacky and obviously marketed towards kids. The packaging featured like this cartoonish artwork of Freddy's hand and various stickers that went on the front with these just insane taglines. The one I have says "Home Sweet Homicide," and other notable phrases are "Quit, I'm killing someone," and "Freddy the sex symbol." Again, marketed towards children. Don't really understand it, but I doubt you'd get away with this stuff today, in my opinion. Maybe, maybe not, but it's sort of locked in that time frame where this type of stuff just hit the market. So a really interesting little quirky Freddy Krueger piece of merchandise. I do wish I had that awesome VHS box set that has most of the Freddy Krueger films. That thing's really cool. But I do have a few VHS tapes. You gotta have those, right? Especially the original film. It's kind of a must-have if you're a VHS collector or horror VHS collector. Also have Freddy's New Nightmare, and I do enjoy this one. I love what Wes Craven started to do, right? It was his prelude to Scream, this very meta type of horror, but it's one of my favorites in the franchise. But I gotta say, of all the Freddy Krueger or Nightmare on Elm Street VHS tapes, my favorite has to be Freddy's Nightmare. This was a very short-run TV show for about 2 years. And, it's basically episodic. Each episode is a different story in Freddy's sort of horror universe. But my videotape is the very first one, the first episode. It's No More Mr. Nice Guy, which tells sort of this backstory of Freddy Krueger, the origins, right? And it's all directed by Tobe Hooper. We kind of know who that guy is, right? He directed Texas Chainsaw Massacre and many other great horror films. So I really enjoy this. I wish that this series was released on Blu-ray because I'd like to be able to watch more of them. I remember watching a few back in the day, but I really think that this is probably my favorite VHS and a very quirky one, not a very common one to have in your collection. And here's one of those items or piece of merch that's not necessarily all that quirky or unordinary. It's a Halloween decoration that came out in 2008. And it's by Gimme or Jimmy. I don't really know if I'm pronouncing that right. But listen, it's put together really well. The sculpt on the face is great, but it talks, it's got some great taglines.
You're mine now, Kiki. I'm gonna split you in two. Ever play Skip the Cat? Welcome to my nightmare. Come to Freddy. Tell him Freddy sent you. Oh, what's wrong? Did someone have a nightmare?
And what I think is interesting about it is it came out in a time when Freddy was kind of in no man's land. I mean, a few years prior we had Freddy vs. Jason, but the 2010 film hadn't come out yet, and even though that one didn't even have Robert Englund. So again, that just shows you the strength of brand of Freddy. Even in years when it's an off year, woven in and out of pop culture, Freddy's always there. I've talked about this little Freddy Krueger bootleg figure before on my channel, but I wanted to show it some more love when we're talking about Freddy Krueger merchandise, especially the more quirky things. And this bootleg is everything to me. It's so great. He's got the double knife hands, and he's kind of got jazz knife hands, you know, with them out there, but a really neat little bootleg figure. And of course, I've also talked about my more recent purchase, this Talking Freddy doll Mexico bootleg, and I think it's great. I won't go into too much of it here, but I've already discussed it. But if we're talking about Freddy merch, I gotta mention my most recent acquisition. A couple years ago, I picked up this this mini bust from an independent small little toy maker called Moonjug, and it was a one-of-one thing that he did. And I really love the color scheme on it. When you put it under different lights, it looks like Freddy's in some sort of LSD trip. It's really wacky, but the sculpt on it is great. It's handmade, hand sculpted. It's really, really cool. And it was like a must buy when I saw it. He had it up for sale, it was a good price. And so I jumped on it. And it's just one of those kind of things that's just really unique and different, but I truly appreciate it. And no Freddy Krueger collection is complete without the knife glove. And this is a vintage one that I have. It's not original, like from 1984, 80s. It's probably early 90s, but it's definitely an older one. And I've had it for a long time. And you gotta have one of these, right? It's just, it looks cool out. It displays fine. It's just a must-have for any fan of Freddy Krueger. A little quirky piece of merchandise I have are these 3D glasses from Freddy's Dead, and they're really a time capsule, just because we don't watch 3D movies that way anymore, and we probably wish we never did. But what I find really interesting about the set that I have is on the inside of one of them, someone wrote down their pager number, right? So a time capsule indeed. Imagine going to the movies with your friends, you bump into someone that you want to talk to later, maybe cute guy, cute girl, who knows, and you know, that's how you get a hold of people. Just, here, page me later. 143-911, call me, whatever. So viewers, how many of you had pagers? I know I did. But I really think these are great. And not only is it just a time capsule, a look back in time, but there's also a coupon for Barg's Root Beer, which I'm going to try to cash in. I'll let you know how that goes. Yes, the Max Effects Freddy Krueger changing doll, right? It starts off as a normal looking dude, and you put the Hollywood effects Freddy Krueger mask on there, and he's all decked out in his Freddy gear. This was a very short-lived thing that Matchbox did. They planned on releasing more. If you flip the box around, you see that they were going to do many different types of accessories to go on this doll, even a xenomorph. And so it's really neat to have that displayed on the back to show what they were going to do. I think this is a really cool idea, to buy the base figure and have different sort of outfits you could put on it that are horror related or have to do with really awesome Hollywood makeup effects. And so the only one that was released was the Freddy Krueger one, and these aren't all that uncommon. My wife got this one for a birthday present a few years ago. I've kept it in the package. The package is a little worse for the wear. I think I'll keep it in the package for the time being because I like how it displays and it keeps the box somewhat intact with the really cool stuff on the back showing what they would have done had they've made more of these. But my most favorite piece of Freddy Krueger merch has to be the Freddy Krueger children's costume by Collegeville Costumes. Listen, we all know the gag with these costumes. We all had one as a kid, or at least if you grew up in the 80s and 90s, you had one of these. Maybe not the Freddy Krueger one. I never remember seeing this one out there. Imagine, right? You're going to the drugstore to pick out your Halloween costume, and you're flipping through. It's like Batman, Superman, nope, Freddy Krueger. And that would have been awesome. That would have been really, really cool. But, you know, they're ill-fitting, they're uncomfortable, they're hot, they're hard to see out of. We know all the tropes with these things. But I was able to find this one many, many, many years ago in really great shape. It's like it would still be hanging on the store rack. And so of all the sort of costumes like this that Collegeville or other companies did, I think the Freddy Krueger one's the most interesting. Again, you know, here's this
horror icon with these overly violent movies that they're catering towards kids. You know what? Who am I to judge? I don't really care. I was lucky enough to grow up, but my parents let me watch just about whatever, and so it doesn't mean that much to me, but it's just crazy to think that how much stuff was marketed towards kids that was R-rated, right? Because how would they know about this stuff if they weren't allowed to watch it? But super cool item. It's one of my favorite, if not my most favorite, Freddy Krueger merch that I have. It's so unique, so weird. It's a very specific point in time where these costumes were in vogue, all the rage. And so, yeah, I have it hanging up here in 2-Day Rentals. You may have seen it in the background on many videos before, but I absolutely love it. And for as old as it is, this has to be mid-late 80s. I'd have to double check it to see. It's still in really good shape, and I plan on keeping it that way. But a whole hell of a lot of fun, the Collegeville Freddy Krueger costume.
Of course, there's so much more merch I could talk about, right? The album, the Freddy album, which I've listened to before. I wish I owned it, but there's some bangers on there, right? This necktie, I mean, what the hell? Board games, right? There was even some more toys that were released on the international market. I mean, this Porsche, it's decked out. I mean, to me, that's like the mecca of Freddy collectibles. If I could ever get my hands on one of those, that would be incredible. But what is this thing, right? I mean, it's so great, and I think that it's an awesome sort of franchise to collect for because there are so many quirky little things.
Hell, the NES game, which in my opinion, I almost enjoy it more than the Friday the 13th game. I'm sure that's probably blasphemy. Neither game is really good, but I think it's actually kind of fun. And it's a shame that there hasn't been another Nightmare on Elm Street video game. I think there's a lot that you could do with that, as far as maybe an asymmetrical type horror game like we've seen with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or maybe just a straight up PvE horror survival game where you're going against. There's so many options when you think about being in a dream world and all the different ways Freddy has gotten to his victims and the things he does to play mind tricks on his victims. I kind of harken back to the Saw games that came on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 back in the mid-2000s. You know, you could maybe do something along lines of that, but it's a shame that there hasn't been more Freddy Krueger video games put out there.
Hey, you forgot the Power Glove!
If there is a Mount Rushmore of horror, Freddy Krueger is on that mountain for me. And maybe at a later time, I can discuss who else is on that mountain. I have a pretty good idea, but that's for another video. What kind of merchandise do you have for Nightmare on Elm Street and Freddy Krueger, if any at all? Are there other movies that you collect for? I always like to ask that question because I love to see what people are into. I truly, truly appreciate each and every one of you that have subscribed to my channel, shared it with your friends, join in the conversation down in the comments below. And if you're new here, this is the first video you've seen or the first time you've checked out my channel, it would mean a whole hell of a lot to me. If you like what you saw, share that with your friends. Hit like, hit subscribe, drop a comment down below, join in the conversation. That's what it's all about. It's like I always say at the end of my videos, let's be kind as we rewind and fast forward through time. Thank you so much for stopping by 2-Day Rentals.
Sweet dreams. Who's next? You? Or how about one of you?